Welcome to My View from the Piano Bench. We do this here on my Joe Holt's Notes YouTube channel on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. in addition to Piano for My Friends on Thursday evenings. So if you happen to cross my YouTube channel, particularly if you don't know me, you'll see lots of these videos over the past 2-3 years. Initially they were other places, then they kind of landed here. And up until that time, I have a lot of single song posts, too many, and would typically only post from gigs. And I gave in to posting from home once the pandemic started, and now it's just a thing. So Thursday evenings I go into cocktail piano hour mode. Wednesday evenings I try to offer some explanation and some sense of discovery and exploration of music or what's behind music or particular songs. And lately I've been just doing this extemporaneously, not planning it out ahead of time, and I think that has helped the presentation, even if sometimes I wander all over the place, but that's just who I am. Thank you to those of you who support and encourage me via the links you'll find on the support page of my website. And if you haven't checked that out, but you watch this with some regularity, I'd ask you to consider that. When you go to that page on my website, one of the options is a Patreon option, which is really a simple take on the tip jar on an ongoing basis. And for ongoing support, you will receive, as a thank you from me, an email every month with some exclusive content, audio or video, often behind the scenes or inside the process. So speaking of video, I haven't posted it yet, but by the time this is up online on Wednesday, by the time you've seen this, I will likely, unless I've changed my mind, which is always a possibility, there'll likely be a post that I link to on Facebook and will be on not this YouTube channel, but most likely my Joe Holt's Notes 2023 channel, so you can search for that, of a 4.5-minute improvisation on Ode to Joy. Recorded the morning after my concert at the Cove Fine Arts Center at Eastern Nazarene College, which now, when you see this, will be last week. I'm getting a little bit ahead in these videos because I kind of need to with my schedule. So I'll just fess up as to what day it is. It's Saturday. And I got home late last night, drove back Friday, and was there on Thursday. And the reason I chose to post that is because I played that the night before in the concert and was told it went on for 10 minutes. And it wasn't an excruciating 10 minutes. It was apparently 10 minutes that worked. And that to me is a big yes. That I can stay in that zone all that time. And unfortunately, I did not capture a video recording, which is good. And the fact that I don't like to compliment myself, but let me just say, I was, whatever game I have, I was kind of at the top of it for much of the night, and I felt good about that. So I'm also feeling good that it wasn't recorded, because maybe that would have gotten in my way. And I didn't want anything to get in my way, and this is what's fueling this topic, which I'm calling In the Zone. So I have the opportunity to go up now perhaps twice a year. I had been up there in the fall college semester last year, after not being there for a few years, and was invited to come back this year. And part of the reason for the frequency is a particular class that my friend who was on the faculty is teaching now, a music appreciation class, and he likes to have live performance examples, and I can cover a bunch of ground for him for that. And if I'm going to come up there, allow me to have a concert. Wants me to have a concert on the evening that I'm there. So it looks like I'm doing that again in the spring, and as long as he continues to have that class, which was initially foisted upon him because an adjunct backed out. He runs programs, and I don't know his official title, but he gets things done over there. And he was a pastor of a church in my general area before, and I got to know him through the Nazarene Church Network, starting when I was on staff at the Chestertown Church of Nazarene from 2003 to 2006. So I've known him about 20 years. And I was looking to kind of redeem myself this time, if in nobody else's view, in mine. And this already opens up a rabbit hole that I could go down. It's like, who are we trying to please here when we perform? And please may not be the right word. What's the litmus test? What's the judgment? How are we doing? And I thought about this today. Kind of like back when I was a kid and my aspiration, my career goal was to be a professional bowler, which would have never worked. And after I got slightly more mature, I said to myself, I should really just concentrate on doing the thing I actually can do. Right? But I worked at it. I had a coach. My dad would take me. This is, of course, before I could drive. And the bowling alleys and all these different towns would have house pros. And Perry D was the house pro at, I think it was Ivy Lanes in Pensacola, New Jersey back then. So I would go and be instructed by him. And it was a different era in bowling than it is now, which is now it's like equipment centric, and it's basically finding the right ball and under the right conditions with the right drilling. That was all just starting to happen when I was coming up, and it was not as much of a strike fest then as it is now. And the goal was get your first ball in the pocket, get at least 7, make all your spares. And then that's the foundation from which you start. And when you execute a good shot, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a strike. And you're not going for the strike. You're going for the good execution. Because if you have consistently good execution, the results are going to work out for you. So that's kind of my outlook here, that I want to know that, I got to the deep end of the pool, and everything else about like what compliments people make, or where I'm playing, or, who likes it and who doesn't, I think that all works itself out. So apparently I got away with last time I was there not being in Boston now. Last time I was up there not being in the zone. And I knew exactly why. And in fact, I made a YouTube post last week, I think. I pulled something from that concert last year, the first song of the concert, and made sort of a joke about it because it took me over 2 minutes to end it. Right? And there was nothing else on there I really wanted to post. I did post the ADD improvisation from there. But for me, that concert was a mess. But I can, post for a good reason that first tune that basically said, if you read the description or if you saw it, that this is what happens to me when I drive an hour and a half in a traffic jam and get to the concert not long before it starts. I never get centered. And that's kind of my biggest pothole. I was going to say nightmare, but nothing's really a nightmare anymore. I'll survive. But I just knew that I wasn't in the zone. And as I go through my years of doing this, and in the zone is not a term I typically use. I'll use the word space. But in the zone does describe it, and everybody kind of understands what that is. And my progression, I think it's fair to say, from, let's say, 20 years ago to now, is being able to manage being either in the zone or in the vicinity of the zone, or have some connection to the zone most of the time, as opposed to kind of not knowing where I am, just trying my best, and occasionally it gets deep, and then when you want it to get deeper, it goes away, and all of that. And you've heard we talk a lot about that. So I purposed to be in the zone, and I learned from my mistake last time. So I was glad to be able to go back up there, and got there the night before, and got enough sleep, manageably, and made sure two things happened. One, during the day, I took a long walk, and two, I spent 2 blocks of time. One on a little portable keyboard. It's not my best option, but that's what I had at the house where I stayed because there was no piano. When I first got up in the morning, and just kind of push my thoughts away and open that space, right? And then after I took a walk, I went over to the performance hall early before the concert and played through the tunes, but in that, cultivating that intuitive place, and everything was stilled and dampened down. It's not that my mind is blank, it's never blank, but I can look at it racing and not be caught up in it racing, right? And I was very happy with the concert, and it's what I'm striving for. And interestingly, I wound up saying the same thing coming out of several songs in a row, which was, and while I was playing this last song, I was thinking about, and I may have mentioned this, that one of the ways that I know that I am where I need to be is if my mind is free. And I could just be actually thinking about something else. And a lot of times when I'm playing, it'll be the observing of what's going on and what that brings to my mind. And if I'm, performing someplace, what I might say next or where I might go next because of that. And that can happen independently of the music, which is also related to how I know I'm where I need to be. If I'm playing and it's an environment, let's say, where somebody might feel the need or desire or whatever to start a conversation with me while I'm playing. That doesn't work if I'm having to really focus my concentration. But if I'm where I need to be, it's like I am perfectly fine talking to you and playing. Which I played a memorial service at Heron Point, the retirement community in town, and I play many, probably most of them there. I've been going there, oh my goodness, next year will be 30 years. So I, of course, know many of the residents and such. But we were coordinating with multiple ministers in the service, and I was actually coordinating multiple musicians, and the chaplain and I didn't really get to talk. And so I start my improvised prelude. My eyes are closed. I'm just going. And then the chaplain comes up and needs to tell me something. Just starts talking to me while my eyes are closed and while I'm playing. She knows that she can, right? And I'm like, okay, I came to and I listened and okay. And it didn't really interrupt what I was doing. But I had 3 musicians sitting up front with me. One was the soloist, the vocalist, and 2 instrumentalists, so we could put together a Dixieland or traditional jazz send-off at the end. with like Just a Closer Walk with Thee and When the Saints Go Marching In, which is what the family wanted. And I'm sure that they were probably horrified. It's like, you don't talk to somebody while they're playing. Well, actually, talk to me, because I want to be forced to be in that proper space. Actually, don't necessarily talk to me, but you know what I mean. And fortunately, I was able to stay in that space, because once you open it up, it kind of stays open unless you really mess it up the next morning, and I could do a little bit of recording on my phone camera to make up for what I didn't do the night before. So now that I've been doing a lot of talking, I don't know if I'm in a real position. I don't know what position I'm in. So let me play something, and I have the list of what I played the other night. Now I see stuff I intended to play and never got around to playing. And I wound up playing stuff that wasn't on the list. Okay, since I'm not connecting to anything I played, let me just play a tune. Stop. And this might be a good example where I wasn't deep in the space, but I was there. The first, I wasn't in my own way. The first melody chorus. Then during the improvisation, I started getting in my way. And if you later on go back, look where the time is here, and watch what I did, you might actually be able to tell, that maybe the bowling ball did hit the pocket, but really light, and I wasn't going to get a strike, but at least I didn't get a split. It's kind of that thing. And I didn't expect to be deep in the space for different reasons, including that I'm talking so much, but there that is. So I tend to use the attention span I have with playing a tune or playing across a length of time, like the Hour Piano for My Friends videos every week, as a measure of sorts of how well I'm able to play from here and rather than think my way through. It'll go faster if I have to think my way through because I'm spinning around and I don't really land someplace where I can open up a tune for a long time. Yeah, and I don't have to open up every tune for a long time. But if I play over the course of an hour and one of those tunes is like more than 6 or 7 minutes, especially not counting the transition, which is worth talking about in a second, then I'm feeling good about having gotten there. So that 10 minutes was kind of a magic number. I did a self-release recording. You can't see it up there. In fact, it's falling down. There's a big blow up of the album cover of something I called Stories Without Words. And I'm pulling back on it. There are a couple of posts from it on YouTube. I don't think I did a digital distribution on that. And that was something where I just improvised freely, right? And called them compositions, inspired by when I really made a connection with the process of Keith Jarrett. And of course, he does, or did, entire concerts, like big long classical movements, freely improvised. Right? And my joke about that is, yeah, he could have a 20 or 30 minute movement. He didn't have ADD. I'm lucky if I get 3 minutes. And it's kind of true. I am lucky if I get 3 minutes. But on Thursday nights for Piano for My Friends, in the last few months, if you've watched it for a long time, you may have noticed it evolving to being about the transitions and the length of the songs and just staying in that zone, which I know drives some people crazy. It's like, would you please stop at the end of the tune and tell us what it is? No, because the whole purpose for me is to go in that space and not come out for an hour. That's what that's about. Which is not exactly what Dave McKenna did, but I think there were different reasons he did it. But when he would do, particularly, restaurant cocktail piano, but even in concerts, it would be one long continuous medley. And people were pent up wanting to applaud, and sometimes they would anyway, and he would ignore it and just play through. And then when it was done, people would break out in applause. And when I had a piano bar gig some years ago, not that long ago, in town here, I just felt most comfortable doing that myself. Not just stopping and starting and trying to get people to applaud, just being underneath and being in one zone. Which makes me think I just don't like the idea of stopping and starting to begin with. This might not be the best example of it, but one thing I tend not to want to do when I go to a gig and I have equipment to move in the venue is worry about parking my car right at the front door and unloading all at once. As long as I'm not in the next county or something. If I'm somewhere in the parking lot, I'm not going to get up and bring my car around, get in and out of my car. That's annoying. I'll just take everything in my car, however it does. And then when I get in the car, I get to drive it. I'm not going to get in the car to drive it 50 feet and then get out of the car again. Stop and start. Okay, let me play a tune that I played the other night by request. whole deal for me is to be able to be detached and in the space. And also, and this is a new one, completely embrace, be thankful for the times I'm farthest from it. For lots of reasons. And I could get all esoterically spiritual wonky about it. But being grateful for every circumstance, no matter what, is an acknowledgement that the reality is an interwoven complexity. And being stuck at that moment where you are, in fact, I've spent most of my life stuck in particular moments, and they're not moments, they're just circumstances. Stuck in circumstances that I carry with me, and I basically like drip grease stains on everything around me when that happens. And the trick is, the objective is, the place you want to be is to let go of that. Even if the reason that I was starting to say that is now out of my mind. I don't remember. Am I out of my mind? Probably. But now I know what I was thinking. Here's another example. A couple of weeks ago, I probably had my worst exhibition of me playing at a time when I really would have wanted to have the best. And the thing about it is, like, I'm grateful it worked out this way. There's lots to learn from it, and it's part of a bigger picture that I can't know. That was when I went to somebody else's gig, and I was a civilian. I was off, and I have to just accept, and I really haven't up until now. I just have to accept that I go to some place where somebody is playing. I mean, oftentimes I won't get called to sit in, but if I don't want to sit in or I'm not thinking about it, that's when it's going to happen. And I just have to be prepared to accept it. Because if it does happen and I'm not in a position to just insist that I can't, which there are reasons that I can't. If I'm not in that position, I need to be in the space. It doesn't work for me unless I am. And I went in and sat in, and the pianist who was playing went out in the audience, and it's like, nope. Oh well. It's all good. But it's a lesson. Be in the zone. Now, I'm speaking for myself because everyone's different. So I'm not going to tell people that I know the way you need to do something. But I've learned the way I need to do something, and I would like to think that everybody can profit from the idea of being in the moment and learning how to do things you do in the moment, even if you are somebody who is ultimately very cerebral. Right? I am not, which is why, among other reasons, I'm not a classical pianist. I can't hold my thoughts in that direction. And every time I play something, even if I practice it a million times, it's going to come out different. Speaking of different, let me noodle around with the Ode to Joy again for a minute and see what happens. here's a contradiction. I might as well point it out. I did it. You saw me put something in my mouth. Okay. Here's the big what do you call it? Reveal. I don't know. It's the word I'm looking for. Slightly caffeinated mints, because I can't really get away with drinking coffee or soda for different reasons. And if I wanted to really think clearly, just a little bit of caffeine, it's as one of my physicians years ago used to say, caffeine is the poor man's Ritalin, right? And it's a little bit of focus, but it does mess with the space. So, but it does help me to think more clearly as far as talking to you. So it's funny, I say, okay, let's try to get into space with this tune, and I stick caffeine in my mouth, right? Go figure. So, when I was coming up as a young musician, one of the and this is a detour, but I should be able to work my way back around the barn and the other outbuilding and get back here. One of the defining periods for me that I really there was really a lot of my school as an early musician, and I had no idea that this was going to happen, was when I responded to an ad in the paper. And I would have been early 20s maybe. Was I back in college? Yeah, let's say early 20s. Could be late teens, but I would say early 20s. And it was back when the shopping malls all had organ stores. Lowry and Wurlitzer were the two big ones. And if you're old enough, you remember that these keyboard and organ stores would be in certain parts of the mall, and there'd always be somebody up front, so it could be seen and heard in the mall playing. The idea was draw you there, have a conversation, right? And then do your salesman thing. So you were actually looking to have impulse purchases. I mean, people didn't go to shopping malls to spend, $4,000 on a home entertainment center organ, thing, which is culturally totally irrelevant now, but wasn't irrelevant then in the early 1980s. In fact, many shopping malls had two organ stores, a Lowry and a Wurlitzer, in different parts of the mall, and they were competing with each other. And I responded to an ad for a teacher to do their lessons, because they have their free lesson program, which is really designed to get you interested in upgrading, but they also offer just normal piano lessons and stuff. And yeah, I went over there, I talked to them, and then I did it. I worked there. Just go in with 1 or 2 nights a week and taught students. Because still, gigging and doing all that stuff, but you just find ways to make it work, right? And while I was there in between students, I would, mess around with the keyboards and the little bells and whistle features, and had fun with it and everything. So I got kind of familiar with them, although that wasn't primarily what I was teaching on. It was mostly piano. But in any business that is a commission draw business for salespeople, especially if it's a bit of a precarious business like that, you're going to have periods of real high turnover in your employees. And that happened there. And the manager said, Joe, you want to pick up some part-time sales hours? We really need the help. And, we won't do commission draw with you. We'll give you like minimum wage, and then we'll do half the commission that the other people get when you make a sale. And like many other things uh, and situations, including some that I've told you about, first one that comes to mind is the facility that offered me a music therapy contract out of the blue before I really even thought about being a music therapist. And I thought about it and said, I could learn something. I should do this. Right? Kind of the same thought I had then. It's like, you know what? This is going to be great because I'm going to get some sales chops. And I'm a musician. I have to be my own everything. We all do. And I could use this. I could use this perspective, right? And I don't know if this was the first. It may have been. It may have been the thing that sparked me on this path to building relationships or having relationships with people that I could barter with them. Like lesson barter was a big thing, and get like sales coaching or business coaching. And then at Lowry, Oregon, have the opportunity to get used to being a little bit assertive with people, getting their information, talking with them, building the relationship. I play up front. And then, you get them in the store. And the good thing for me was that because I wasn't part of their regular sales team, I got like general. I was filling the space when it was needed, but I wasn't like in all the meetings, and it wasn't. I was kind of off doing my own thing, but I knew what the rules were. You have to get the leads. You have to follow up, and they had this thing, the lead book. That was invaluable to me to get the idea of having the lead book, where you talk to somebody, and of course, in the mind of a salesperson, you can easily go to close, 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 push, push, push. That turns me off. I run away. So it's like, I know what I want to do. I want to build a rapport with people. And once I have their contact, they don't have to buy today, but I'm going to have rapport with them. And when the time comes, we'll be ready, right? In fact, one of my customers there, funny how this conversation about being in the zone gets me here. Anyway, one of my customers was a car salesman. And he was actually the, I think, top car salesman in New Jersey or something. I mean, he did really well. He had all sorts of awards in his office. I was over there at his car dealership. I'd actually go to his house and do some lessons with him. And I think I did upgrade him once or twice, right? But his thing was, and he lived this, he was the last thing from a pushy car salesman. He just says, you just give people what they want. You answer their questions. You be there for them. You give of yourself to them. They're going to come to you when they're ready to buy. You're going to be the one. And I found myself saying something like this to a young musician that I worked with a couple of weeks ago. Actually, I think he's 19, which is ridiculous. I'm over 3 times his age. And I felt just like, giving him things for his very youthful perspective to think about. And one of the things that I said to him, and he got it. And I don't know that he thought about it until then, but he got it. Was that you want to get yourself into the position where people will trust you, which of course means be trustworthy, right? One of my lines about being a musician is that if people find out you are a musician, it's really easy to make a good first impression because the reputation that musicians have, a lot of it earned, is awful to a lot of people. Not all musicians, but and I'm being a little caricaturish, but I think you also know what I mean. So my sort of joke about it is that, if you show up and you're sober or you're on time or you're polite, you've automatically exceeded expectations, or and it served me well to be someone that somebody can trust. Like, okay, I'm in all these different applications. Music therapy was a big one. Like, I'm not going to be here today, but I'm going to leave you in charge of this. You run the store, so to speak, and I don't have to worry about things. And that's the position that you want to be in with people, right? You want to be reliable. Not that I'm perfectly anything, but this is where the mindset is. Yeah, so good old Andy Selinsky, the car salesman. And it just validated what I felt, right? And so now just talking to you, I'm actually seeing that in my early 20s as being kind of foundational to when I was in my 30s, having the epiphany that the music making itself forges a relationship with people. And that relationship, that connection, is what making music is all about, Charlie Brown. So I guess it was starting when I got the idea that, well, as I like to say, God doesn't put artistic temperament and business sense together in too many people. So when you have one, you got to go out and work on the other. And so I did in lots of respects. But the thing about working a few years as a salesman in part-time in the Lowry organ store was an important part of that. So the lead book, how did that work? And when I got myself around it, it's like it wasn't a pain. It was actually like a really good piece of like structure. It was like a way I could structure myself. And the rules were, you got somebody's contact. You had to get a way to get a hold of them, and it didn't have to be phone number. Of course, this is way back before cell phones. It could be, mailing address. And then you keep in touch with them. Now, ideally, they buy something small. They come in and they take the group lessons. And of course, if you're in the store when they come in, then you can talk to them. And then you can say, hey, have you seen this thing over here? Look at what this does. I'm cautious about that because my neck and the hair on the back of my neck stands up when I feel I'm, being sold something. So I was discreet and, not in their face, but I was there. And the rules were that you had to document a contact of some kind no less than once a month. And that contact could be you send somebody a brochure of a new model that just came out, or you find a reason to write a note, or even like send a Christmas card, right, or something like that. So I think the thing that I was the most on top of was that lead book, and I probably had some system that would flag when I was getting up close to that month. And a lot of times I would wait until the end of that month so that people weren't just being annoyingly, barraged by me. But my lead book, I don't remember ever screwing up and losing one of my customers, because once they were your customer, they remained your customer. And here was the important part, and really important for me because I was there the least amount of time. If somebody came in the store, you weren't there, and somebody else closed a deal for them, if they were your customer and you were current in the lead book, it was your sale. And was one of the other salespeople, actually the head teacher there, was that person not happy with me when she did a major upgrade on somebody and found out later that they were my customers and I kept my lead book current. And I heard this later because I wasn't in the store, that when I think the manager or somebody realized, you know what, you better check Joe's lead book. And she ran and got my lead book, and there it was. I had sent them I don't know if this is true, but let's just say I sent them the brochure for the thing they bought a few weeks before they came in. Ooh, and I got the commission for that. Yeah, and one thing that I was really pleased with myself for was the 1 month, and I guess I was at the sales meeting that month. It was the 1 month that I was top salesman in the store, with like half or less the hours of anybody else. But that was only going to happen down the road when I had these relationships that were, ongoing. Now, am I a good salesman? No. And at least in some respects. And would I turn it over or do a TO, not technical knockout, that's TKO, and bring somebody in if it was time to do a hard close? Sure. Took all the resources available to me. Let me get my manager and let me ask him what he thinks, right? Hang on, let me talk to my manager. Maybe we can make this little deal for you. What that's about is, and of course, it's all like car sales too, right? You're basically you're standing in the back room where you can be seen with the manager, and you're talking about lunch or something, whatever. And it's like, okay, you've got it now. Go. I'll follow you back. You talk to him. You close it. Okay, and that's what would happen. Yeah, I mean, so I was never going to have a career in sales. If I had to, though, and I had to have been a car salesman or something, I would have taken the Andy Selinsky model, and I probably would not have starved. The interesting thing is today, my oldest son, who shares my name as a junior, has really moved up in the sales world, and I can't even describe the realm he's in. It's IT stuff. It's software for companies, and man, is he! And I knew this when he was young. And I told him, "You are a salesman. No, I want a job that secure, and that's not going to work for you, Joe." And of course, it didn't. And he's going way up the food chain. He's doing very well. Of course, I'm very proud of him. He's being who he is. My objective back then was to be who I am, a musician, but to do the things that I have to do to be able to be a musician, right? And now the real trick is those things that you have to do that aren't about the art. How do you keep them from getting in the way? Maybe sometimes you don't. So the evolution of all this was when I found myself with that first music therapy contract, and then my name's getting around, stuff's happening, and I go get the music therapy certification, which was a process. I had to augment my college degree and all of that. And it was the same thing from that point that it was like 10 years earlier when I was doing lots of concerts in small churches around the country, which is the part when I say, concert touring around the country, legitimately true. I would get in the car and several times a year drive with the family for days or weeks at a time, often wind up in the Midwest, lots of contacts in Nebraska, Dakotas, Kansas, or if it was further west, I would fly, and lots of churches. And you get the anchor thing, but it's because the same thing at the organ store, right? I got had the lead book. You make an initial contact. You send them something. You wait a while, and sometimes I was too annoying, I'm sure, right? But then, I'm coming through this area, and you think you could make room for me this weekend and do something? Well, sure, because you've been talking to them for a year and a half now, right? And they're probably looking for an opportunity. It's like, yeah. And so it really wasn't hard for me to put these little tours together, thanks to Lowry Organ, right? And then I get to the music therapy world. And I set my sights on senior communities. And I was also helped because my name was getting around and I was getting cold calls, which is what happened at the community in Chestertown almost 30 years ago now. It introduced me to this area uh, for a music therapy contract. But my lead book was extensive, right? And how did I get to the point where I managed, I think it was 30, maybe 31 or 32, ongoing senior communities? The lead book. No way I could have done it otherwise. And eventually, though, all of that started to flake away because as I continued to learn to play not out of my mind, but from my heart, all those things that you're really, the goal sets and all this all these determinations or worse, conclusions. This is what has to happen, blah, blah, blah. They start to fall off. And my focus became not selling, not doing, but being. And I've told you this, it was, I don't know how long ago it was some years ago, but it was like the to-do list, the goals, the stuff, I threw it away. It's like, okay, I mean, that skill set doesn't leave, especially with contacts and lead books. And I still sort of do it, but not in the same way. Because what's my goal now? It is to be in the space as much as possible whenever I sit down and play. Because at this point now, and I've been doing this for a long time, and at this point, there's some momentum behind it. There's some track record. There's some things. I'm not, by no means, famous or anything like that. That's not the point. But it's just, I've survived doing it. And now I just need to go into each situation and nail it. And nail it meaning open the space and connect with people. And then that's going to provide me with the next thing. And I've always said that, since I was really young, that I don't have an employee mentality, which is like that the job is an entitlement. I know that I need to earn my gig tomorrow by doing a good job at the gig today, which I didn't always do. And I didn't always earn that particular next gig. But I've had a lot of time to kind of work on it and work that out. And I'm feeling affirmed in this, intuitively or spiritually, or whatever you want to say. That it's led me on this little journey to now just be focused on the music and manage all the other stuff and manage the support stuff behind it, but don't put that first now. That's the support system. And let's go back to Eastern Nazarene College. Why did I get to go there? Well, John Nielsen, who's the professor up there, who's my contact, or my friend really, he pastored a church in suburban Washington, D.C., Melwood Church of the Nazarene. And he came across me, and he personally likes stylistically what I do, and he became a fan. And every chance he could come up with, he would have me in his church. Sometimes for church services, but most often, like when it dedicated a new piano. Yeah, he had me come for that. But most often it was like special event nights, Broadway night or Love Song Valentine's night. And he would put together things and they would kind of revolve it around me being there because I had that connection with him. And through that, I made connections with other people. And so in that case, and in lots of cases now, it wasn't about, I sold it. Well, I did sell it by being, not by doing. And I've lost track of how many times I was at his church over, a period of many years, but it was a good number of times. And then he went up to Eastern Nazarene College and had me up there in 2019, and then called me again because he had this new class that was foisted on him, and I was going to go be a presenter for one of his classes and play a concert at night. Sure. And he still has that class. He said to me when I was up there last time, we're going to do this again. And he's talking about ongoing. And I don't count my chickens, that haven't hatched or haven't even been, the eggs haven't been laid yet, right? But I'm looking at this and I'm saying thank you. And I guess I just felt it was really important. Man, this has got all the way around the barn. But yeah, this is how I write my blog post, by the way. But with the blog posts, I can clean them up, and get rid of the stuff that goes all over the place. Here I can't. So the bottom line is that because I struggled so much last time, which didn't bother anybody, but I knew what could have happened, and it didn't. Or I'm bowling and I didn't get enough hands on the ball, and it was kind of weak getting to the pocket, but I got a lucky break and got a strike. It would be better if everything were right and I got an unlucky break and got a tap and left a pin. Because down the road, that's going to serve me better than relying on actual luck, good luck. And I guess that's why it was so important for me to okay, you got to fix what was broken last time. And this time, I stay with my friend. He put me up in his house, and he essentially lives on campus, or right off of campus, backs up to the parking lot. And I didn't have to have a ridiculous drive. And if I were staying someplace a half hour or an hour away, like I did before, I'd have to come earlier in the day, and I'd have to just hang out at the school and not get there 30 minutes before the concert like this, right? And it's like that success of pulling that off gives me the opportunity to do it again next semester, which we're going to do, and then perhaps thereafter. Now, if you want to go into my world, this thing about this one gig, put that narrative or that story or that momentum on every gig. But they're all interrelated, but they're all their own past things too. And this might help you understand how, managing this calendar that has something on it every day, right? You work full time? No, you don't. Oh my goodness. It's morning to night. I get to live this life, and I'm so blessed. But man, don't tell me I don't have a job. Don't tell me, you know all this, right? So I'm still going to call this In the Zone, right? Because that's what I think I said in the beginning. And I think I did get back to it, that ultimately it's about being in the zone, but also facilitating the opportunities to be able to be in the zone, right? Juggle, 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 and all of that. And who would have thought I'd be still doing this? But enough of you essentially sponsor this to, barely make it viable, but I want to do it anyway. So I'm going to do it if it's barely viable. And maybe you can't do something that's not viable forever, which I learned about Mainstay Mondays. I did that for way too long. And everybody now understands that those circumstances for me were ridiculous. But 200 shows for that, and again, I got the reputation of somebody that you could depend on to put on a quality show every week and devote like sometimes most of his week, to making that happen. And which, by the way, if you're on my email newsletter list and you've been on for a long time, during Mainstay Monday, you kind of stopped getting them because I was putting out emails for the Mainstay. And now everything's sort of back in focus. So here's a window into my life. You haven't run away screaming if you're still here watching. And I made reference to the support. I'm making sure I say it now in a little bit more of a pointed manner at the beginning, because I see this is working, and I know a lot of people, most people, are going to watch this, and it's fine. Watch this and just not interact with me that way, but some of you do, and some of you will, and those are rapports, and they're important, special rapports to me, and I do take seriously what I can put together to send each month to the people who provide support, and it's all about relationship, whatever it is, right? And I'm blessed, and I hope that you have a sense of being blessed in your own space. Boy, was that a ramble fest. But, last time I thought that, I listened to it like while driving in the car before it, aired, whatever you say, the first time. And it's like, hey, it actually worked. I wonder what I'll feel this time. I wonder what you feel right now. But you haven't run away screaming, and I won't either. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow night for Piano for My Friends. Thanks for being here. See ya.